Joining me now on the set is the Liberal Senator for New South Wales, Holly Hughes. Thanks for joining us, Holly.
Nice to see you, Chris.
How do you feel at this stage? How nervous are you? It really would be like coming from coming from nowhere to get over the line this time.
Yes, and look, am I overly confident? No. I have always sort of not looked too much at the national polls, gone state by state, seat by seat. I've spent a bit of time of it this week going through where I think we're going to land.
So give me a tip. How many seats will the coalition win?
So very conservatively, my tip at the moment, there'll be another review done tonight. 75 coalition, 68 for the ALP, and I've got 8 in the other columns. So Greens, Independents, Centre Alliance,
75
Katter Party.
seats, that's a coalition government.
It is a coalition government.
We have Bob Katter and
Helen Haynes, and hopefully Di Lee.
Interesting.
I mean, interestingly, just listening to your segment on the ABC, notice Di Lee as an independent hasn't got much attention out in Fowler compared to the Teals.
She's not the sort of they don't like independents who run against Labor members or in Labor seats. They like independents who knock out the coalition. That's a very, very good point. I think it's fascinating, but I do really think this shy Tory factor is increasing, if anything, because the debate out there is so toxic. You must live it every day. To identify as a coalition supporter or to back their policies is to invite scorn, at least, from your friends at the pub, or abuse at worst.
Well, we all know the social media abuse, and personally I've been having quite the giggle over the last few days because Albanese made this ridiculous comment talking about electric vehicles, that it was wonderful because your solar panels could charge it for free at night.
Yes.
And so I put this tweet out sort of saying, solar panels at night. Well, you should have seen the Lefty meltdown, because what about batteries? She doesn't understand the different type of, solar going into the grid. I understand all of that perfectly well. But their Messiah said solar panels at night. But the meltdown from Peter Fitzsimon to Mike Carlton to you name it, and because
You're talking about a couple of the worst there, a couple of old lefty Twitter abusers.
Well, Mike Carlton's told me what his wife has said about me, whom I went to university with, who's one of those great feministas at Four Corners.
Yes, she's an ABC
producer. I mean, they're so about all the women. Yeah,
well, the narrative is there. The narrative is essentially from Labor. This is what worries me about what Labor are doing, and because as an Australian, I like to think you have this great Australian Labor Party, but they have not put forward a case to get to change government or to come into government. They've basically said, we hate Scott Morrison, so give us a go. In fact, I thought Anthony Albanese yesterday did his best and perhaps even most positive attempt at summing up his case. Let's just have a look at this. This is Anthony Albanese summing up his case for change yesterday.
This government is out of touch, it's out of ideas and it's out of time. And in the next 48 hours, people have an opportunity not to change the personality of the Prime Minister, who himself says he's a bulldozer and knocks things over, but to change the government.
Yeah, look, that's about as succinctly as he's put it, but it's still really just a personal attack on Scott Morrison, isn't it?
Look, and I think if Albanese had been trying to make those comments over the past 3 years, they might not have started in the same position they had, where the focus then went on to Albanese. Is he up to this job? And I think we've seen through the campaign, he's gaffe not. And it's, gaffe after gaffe after gaffe, not being across the detail. And him today saying he's absolutely exhausted. And if we can see what he's been doing over the past few weeks, it's half-day campaigns. I mean, Jonathan Lee on Sky's been brilliant, as, he always is during campaigns. But he has been calling it out, that Albanese is pulling the pin at 12:30 each day, 3 media appearances or 3 efforts. That's not governing the country. Governing the country is a bit of a bigger job, and you don't get to say, I'm really tired, I'm going for a lie down now.
You've got to have an amazing amount of energy, there's no doubt about it. And I hope you're not saying Jonathan Lee doesn't work between campaigns, because work between.
I know, but I was going to send him a message going, I hope you're getting some time by the pool now that Albo's pulled the pin at 12:30 in Perth.
Perhaps he's still filing. I do want to show you, though, and our viewers, what Scott Morrison said today. This is a clip where I think Scott Morrison has summed up his pitch for re-election.
Millions of Australians will be making up their minds today and tomorrow, even as they stand in that booth. And there's just one question. Who do you think is going to be better able to manage the finances of this country? The Liberals and Nationals, who have been able to take Australia through the biggest economic crisis the nation has faced since the Great Depression, ensured that we get unemployment to 3.9%, Or a Labor Party led by Mr Albanese, who a few weeks ago couldn't even tell you what the unemployment rate was. Yesterday he didn't even know whether the borders were open or closed. And he announced that he is going to have higher deficits, higher debt, putting more pressure on the cost of living and on interest rates, and will come after you with higher taxes and will be worse off.
There you go. That's Scott Morrison's pitch, but also a very strong warning about his opponent, right?
Albanese is just not up to the job. And you can even see the most die-hard of leftist followers are really finding it difficult to find a positive behind what Albanese will offer to the country. And I think that's also shown. And, you know, Albanese's almost adopted and copied every policy that the coalition has announced this campaign, saying, oh, we'll do that too, we'll do that as well. And someone needs to point out to him and his team that Scott and Josh and our ministry won't be there providing them with this policy guidance if they become the government. They'll be expected to come up with an idea rather than just Me Tooism. So I don't think they've shown they're up to it. I think, as you say, the quiet Australians know that. I think they're grateful for what they've seen us coming through the pandemic, keeping their jobs, keeping businesses open. And I don't think they're announcing it at the pub. I don't think they're announcing it in the schoolyard. I think they're keeping it to themselves.
It's been a pretty dismal campaign, though, hasn't it? We've only had that negativity from Labor. And your side, the coalition, hasn't really given us a strong pitch for the future. Where's the future agenda?
Well, I think there has been a pitch for the agenda, and it's about rebuilding. And we know we've come out of the most difficult time. And you look at what the unemployment figures were later, looking at what we're trying to do around first home buyers, giving access to the superannuation. We know the Labor Party's in meltdown about that, because where else are they going to employ all their former members if they don't have industry super funds offering jobs? You know, so there has been a positive agenda. It's about supporting families and making sure that those businesses continue to thrive. We also want to make sure that we keep a lid on those economic levers, that we're not seeing inflation, we're not seeing interest rates off the charts. We're not going to dictate to the Fair Work Commission what the minimum wage should be. But they don't seem to understand supply and demand in the Labor Party, that if you've got low unemployment, you've got a pretty tight job market. That means people have got to pay more for their staff.
We will see.
You want to raise wages, let's do it via the market.
We will see. We better move on. Thanks so much for joining us again. And
enjoy tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a day. Thank you very much. Liberal Senator for New South Wales, Holly Hughes there. Now, on the other side of this break, we're going to catch up on some exclusive polling that looks at a couple of big